Hey Blaster fans, this is Blaster Master Ray Bear back in the Blaster Lab. This is Blaster Lab 2.0. I've had to reconfigure because I've expanded, so I had to make it too high. I decided that the Blaster Lab is a little noisy. I'm always having to shout over my employees. They don't like the shout. We're gonna try different locations. First I'll set my work table up out here by my R&D department. Okay, this seems a little bit more tranquil. We can start our Zen build here. Alright, so today we're going to start on Han Solo's DL44, the new kit offered by Blaster Master. Alright, this is the DL44. The bolt operates, knocking the hammer back to a cock position, and the trigger releases the hammer. This scope assembly is on a thumb screw. Alright, so you can also untwist your muzzle, flash suppressor. That's just a friction fit assembly. The upper receiver assembly back. This is the prototype. I broke it, so I had to glue the handle, but you can build the handle to where it's also a friction fit. Oh yeah, wow, these things are loud. So the first thing we're going to do when we open up our kit is the little baggie. You can open that up and get the little pieces out of there. And then all this flashing that I use in the printing process, this is so that it sticks really good to the table on the printer, so it won't have edges that pull up, so you'll get like a really sweet match between the parts. Okay. We're going to use a razor knife. I'm going to try a new glue this time. I noticed this at Walmart. It's a Loctite 60-second super glue. So well, it's actually, they don't call it a super glue, but I'm sure it is if it cures in 60 seconds. So it must be a thick super glue. We're going to try that. And you're going to probably need a pair of needle nose pliers. I've got sanding sticks in assorted sizes. I get a roll of adhesive sandpaper from my local hobby shop usually, but you can get any self-adhesive round ones, and you can just trim the sandpaper to fit. You can get them anywhere. I'm going to start cleaning up these parts with the razor knife, and you got to clean up all this support structure inside these body halves. Now be careful, that round part that's supposed to be there, that's your trigger pivot, and this piece of flashing is supposed to be there. These things are only 0.4 millimeter thick, so they shouldn't be hard to mostly break off, and then you can clean them up with sandpaper if you want. But see, this all has to get taken out of here anyway, so I'm going to go right up here with my knife and just kind of wiggle it to free up this scaffolding. Be very careful when you're working with these knives. They will cut you and you won't even know it for a minute. So once I get that loosened up, see, I can kind of peel it back. That little section needs to stay there. That's part of the body. You get all that structure away, and then you do the same thing on the other body, okay? And on the upper receiver here, I left this area blank so you can try to get under there. This is going to be the hardest piece to clean up. Just get under here at an angle so you're... I like to use needle nose pliers to get in there and rip it. But anyway, there is a hollow area under here on both sides. If you can get under there like that with the pliers. and it starts to open up for you a little bit. Just gut that thing like a fish. If you look at it from the front there, you can see the grooves. See, there's inside grooves on the bottom of this. So you got to make sure you clean those out a little bit. Alright, we got most of that out. Now we can clean away the outside edges. Be careful here not to take off too much. Alright, so then I got a little scraping tool I use, but you know, you can use whatever you got to clean this bottom out good. Needs to be cleaned up too. First get the outside area here. And then it's got this support structure in here, so be careful not to break. These two walls are not real thick. So run your knife along the edge. You don't have to do hard at first. Just get a nice clean line so it'll follow it again. Now you can go through a little bit harder, see? That's nice. Now do the same. There you gotta pull out, see? Right there. Alright, make sure it's deep enough. And then clean that all up with the sticks. Yeah, see, there's a little edge there. It just protrudes just past. There it goes. Got it. Now we can just clean up this floor. This is where the spring's gonna go. That'll make your bolt action work. Alright, now all these parts need to be sanded. So I'm going to take, after I finish trimming them up like I showed you, and I'm going to take all my little parts out of here.
Did you tell them?
As you can see too, this cleanup makes an awful lot of mess. So make sure you clean up after, and don't make your wife clean up after you. That's just bad taste. So I said it, all right. So where'd you hide my Xbox? This is the sander that I bought. It's a vibrating sander. Make sure you don't use any RO sander that spins real fast or anything and create too much heat. Alright, so most of these parts are self-explanatory. Clean them up with your sandpaper and stuff. If you can't figure these out, refer back to the hammer. Clean these up more with our sanding sticks, like this lower section here. You just, especially the surfaces that are the flat, shiny ones, that's the part that was stuck to the bed. Okay, so you have to make sure that those are cleaned up well, just with the sticks. You don't want to use the power sander for this, because all you want to do is knock that shine off of it and make sure that there's no protruding lip anywhere. So we're going to use this, and you're only going to go until it's uniformly dull. That's what you want. and you want to change up angles often as you're doing these. Okay. And then once we get those, you have to pre-sand the inside of this trigger guard, because the assembly doesn't allow you to remove the trigger once it's installed. Also about the trigger, you want to make sure that this post, you might have to clean that up a little bit with the sanding sticks. It's kind of a pain, but because that is the surface that's flat, so sometimes there's a little bit of a lip there where I always have to like take a knife and just slightly scrape the edge there, you know. You want to make sure that in both halves that the trigger can go over that post and still operate. It don't move much, but it needs to operate freely. Okay. This too, on this upper receiver, there's that in there that you need to, I just pinch it with needle nose pliers, or you can get in there with your knife, but you need to break that out. And then also on the inside, you'll see that there's a little bit of a scaffolding that they put right in there, so you need to get rid of that, otherwise your bolt, it won't fit in there right. So we get rid of that little piece right in the face. Okay. Some people like it in the face. No face pirates for me. You know what a face pirate is? That's when you get something in one eye and you go, "Arr!" But you gotta make sure that this is all nice and smooth, because the hammer is going to be moving in there. And in here, because that trigger is going to be moving in there. So I scraped that quite a bit with my little scraping tool. Upper receiver is in two pieces. Sand these mating surfaces so that the glue will bond well. So, and you don't want to alter it, you just want a light touch, and just, like I said, make this surface uniformly dull. This edge too. Alright, so we're going to try this Loctite. Part is, you see where that, you can see the seam where these two parts come together. You take a sanding stick while the glue is still a little bit tacky inside and it's filling that gap. So I'm going to take my sanding stick, create a little bit of sanding dust from this plastic, and it's going to fill that gap right. So let's see. I can't. If you can't feel it with your fingernail, then it'll be covered well with paint. If you can feel a snag on your fingernail, that means it's still got to be sanded a little bit. Okay, on this side, but this side. See, the bottom had that extra layer of flashing, so I need to sand that all off. You can tell by where that split was in the back. So just sand till that's gone. And with your sanding sticks like that and there, and then we'll get the rest of this later. So I rough sand everything first. Oh, don't sand that area there, that little arc, because that's supposed to have little steps right there. So don't sand that smooth. We use our narrowest sanding stick to clean up the insides of this piece after it's good and dried. And on all four edges, you know, all four sides. Clean that up so the bolt will fit in there nice. Also, you might have to hit it here a little bit for the bolt to fit in there right after, just to fine tune things. Together and sanded the really cool stand that comes with it. Okay, you know, I'll get the hammer if I need to. It's 3 pieces, people. You can figure out how to put it together. I didn't need to show you. So, and I sanded the. I used my sanding sponge actually on these, and I just went in a you know, follow the grain kind of fashion for this edge, and then I used it in here. Got it all in there. Got that sanded really well. the grips. I'm going to try something with the grips. I'm going to try this faux finish, and I'm going to cover that later in the video. So I cleaned up all my little pieces with sandpaper, the sticks and all that, and I put some sandpaper on the dowels to get the inside of that trigger guard, like I said, because once you put the trigger in, it's not removable. So you have to finish sand both of these pieces. So we're going to go ahead and glue this, the two body halves together, so we can finish sanding the outside. And I've rough sanded all the other parts. Okay, so we're going to put the trigger in place. Now I had to ream this out a little bit because you want to make sure that it's nice and loose. Okay, that it only moves like 1/8 of an inch, but you want it to move nice and freely. All right, and you'll notice that when you put these two together, everything, or hopefully everything, matches up the way it's supposed to. I'm getting a little variation back here. I might fill that in to make it look right, but you need to make sure that the back right there, those line up really well, and then it lines up in the front. And anything else we can fix with a little bit of dust and glue. Okay. Oh, and I forgot to show you the scaffolding inside of this piece needed to be removed very carefully. I went in there with my X-Acto knife, and then after that I went in there with my sanding stick to clean it all out, make sure that it's nice and smooth. That's for the safety here to go in, and that knob will move, but it won't be functional. All right, so let's go ahead and take one of the springs that was provided, and we'll take this roll pin that was in the kit. We're going to stick this through there temporarily. Okay, just to give the trigger a place to pivot so you can hold this spring in place. Deal with it delicately because until you get it glued together, it's going to want to jump on you. Alright, so I'm going to put glue on this side only. Do not put glue on your trigger guard, trigger pivot point, and when you're putting it up here, be very careful to stay clear away from this. You don't want it to get down on that trigger and freeze that up on you. I usually use this super glue here. I pick it up at my local hobby shop. I get the thick, and I do like it better than this Loctite gel, to tell you the truth. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of the model with this. I used this to glue the stand together, the legs, and it seemed to not want to set right and be strong. You know, it still felt flexible. So alright, so this is ready to go together. I also have a couple of clamps just because I don't feel like holding it for 60 seconds once I got the position right. Alright, so line these up with that. That hole will go where that. Okay. Back lines up good. I'm going to go ahead and clamp that. Make sure that that's nice and even there. Now let me look over on this side. The top really up here really don't matter much, but you will see the very bottom here, so you want to try to get that as close as possible without messing anything else up. Looks like I'm going to have to build that area a little bit, but see these fins that I haven't touched yet, these are going to end up covering that seam for the most part, but the last little part here will show, so we're going to have to clean that edge up. Clamp on here too. So while this glue is still a little wet, I'm going to go ahead and take one of my dowels here and create a little dust to fill that gap in, like a Bondo. Oh, and if you want to weigh down the gun for a more realistic feel before you clamp this together, you can put some lead weights or something in this section. Right now, my trigger isn't quite releasing. If you see inside there, when I pull the trigger, see that come up, but it's not coming up quite high enough, so I need to trim just a little bit right here. I could probably do that with a sanding stick because it don't take much, I don't think. Yeah, see, it didn't take much. Now it works every time. There we go. Alright, so now when this dries for about a half hour, I'll take it outside and hit it with my sander on all the flat spots, and then for these recessed areas, and I'll use my sanding sponges. I had to go down. I used the sanding sponge on the hard parts, and then you know, there's a lot of flat spots on here that you can use the sticks for. Okay, but then these two recessed areas here, it was easier to get in with a sponge, and then also for these contoured areas here, it's a lot easier to use the sponge. And then I used my stick. Get in that groove there to make sure that it's nice and smooth on both sides. So I sanded the body, and I was able to get it pretty good profile up at the top. Now I got the sides sanded. I want to see how these fins fit. There's one that has a little half moon out of it. That's to go around this circle area, so you know this is the one that goes up top. Oh yeah, that fits nicely. Then you slide that into place, and there's the next one is just a little bit bigger, and then the last one is bigger still. So that's how they go. And after I glue these in, I'll hit them with the sanding sponge to clean them up a little bit, and I'll kind of use the edge get in there so I don't knock too much of the top off if I don't have to. Oh, and the bolt, you want to make sure that I had to go in here a little bit right here where the strip clip loads to just edge those a little bit for this to fit nicely in there. Alright, so we can take the other spring that come in the kit and put it in there, and then this little stopper here goes in there. Fit that inside the spring handle. Take that little support structure out there and trim this up. Everything's sanded. Go ahead and cock that so it's out of the way. And this should slide right in there. Friction fit. Alright, after you get a good fit in there and you can go ahead and sand this to contour so it'll look good. You want to make sure you sand your barrel good enough to where it fits inside of here. Now, this is the part that sits down on the bed, so you might have to just run a reamer around the edge, because it's even better than that. This. Oh yeah. Use that. Just that much makes all the difference. Put our scope together. This flat piece, you'll notice this end is notched, and this end has the tab to go with it, so that's the only way it can go together. I'm switching back to my glue. I hate that Loctite shit. I don't recommend that you buy it unless you want to use it for filling. Then it might be okay. Now after I've done rough sanded everything too, I'm going to go over the entire thing with the sanding sponges, because it helps to blend, take the sharp edges off of things too. So, but you know, be careful, don't rub too hard, but you want to just knock the edges off everything. This little piece here that goes in the scope, the guard goes forward. I've already cleaned all these up with my sandpaper sticks, okay? So we're going to go ahead and glue this in place along with this knob, which I already sanded too. Hold that in place for 30 or 40 seconds. This glues a lot better. Two through buttons that will go in these two round locations here. Roll pin. It will be hidden by the bracket. See? In place. I'm just going to run a couple of beads of glue. I'm not going to go all the way because remember they don't go all the way down. So a few seconds. Of course, test fit. Beautiful. Alright, we're going to glue these in place. I've already sanded them. Alright, we'll let those dry for a minute. There's the rear sight. It'll be in two pieces. There we go. And then you got this, you'll have to clean the pieces out from the inside. And the flat side will go on the bottom. And this will slide right in there like that. Okay. Just like that. Now, you can glue this down if you want. I mean, it's semi-operational if you want to have it look that cool, but the scope gets in the way. You can't really use it, and you don't need this if you have that red dot sight on it anyway. So you can, I say you glue this in place. If you want to, you can put a little pin through there so that this will actually work. Alright, so our thumb screws have dried a little bit. Let's go ahead and put this on there with the center indentation outward. And I'm going to go ahead and thumb screw these in. Alright, so let's go ahead and slide our upper receiver on here. Got to cock the gun, get it started in there. You got to hold that trigger down because it gets caught up on the thing. And then you really got to pull this trigger back. You could even use something in there to help you, but just a little bit. There you go. Get that past that. There, see how that's coming together nicely. We can go ahead and glue this barrel in place. Clear that out. So I'm going to just put glue on this. Yeah, okay, I'm going to hold it in place because you can see the glue oozing out there. So it's filling that gap nicely. Alright. The reason I'm putting this together first is because you want to make sure that your scope isn't going to be cocked. Okay? You want to make sure that everything is, you don't want to glue this on yet. Because if you do, then who knows if this is going to be straight, So we're going to glue this to the scope first. So we're going to pay close attention to that as we're holding it as it dries. I want to make sure I get both of those surfaces. Okay, Okay, so this will be forward. You want to make sure you're holding it with that button on the right, the correct side. So that would be this way, okay? Okay, now I'm gonna make sure it stays nice and square. Oh, you got it. It feels good in there. And I'm gonna hold that until it's good and dry. Put some glue on here. Alright, so I'm going to eyeball it, make sure that it's nice. You can feel whether it's flush at the bottom too, and that should be perfect. So I'm going to hold it there and I'm going to look at it. From this angle it looks good. Looks good there. Oh yeah, this is perfect. And then we can slide our handle in here. Starting to look familiar. Bolt in place. And we put our spring in there. Then we take our retainer. We gotta get it in there behind that spring. Sometimes it's best to hold that spring back a little bit with something. And then this is in the spring now. We need to finesse this to where it'll go in. Careful not to break anything, but it'll go. Or if you need to, just hit it with a sanding stick real lightly on that very back corner. I might have to do that. Alright, yeah, it went in a lot easier. Alright, now with that in there, your bolt should operate. Might need to work on it a little bit. Now I glued this in on mine, you know, because I found that if I left it loose, it just kept binding. But if I put just one little drop of glue right here on the back, so the button holds the position. Just, you're not trying to get a lot of glue in there, just a tap. And you want to hold this in the position where it operates good. Now let that dry before you try to keep playing with it. Alright, so now I'm going to go over the entire model, especially these fins. They haven't been touched at all. I'm going to go over the entire model with my sanding sponges. These are fine grit sanding sponges. After I fine sanded with the sponge all these parts, this now fits. So you can put a set screw in it if you want, but you don't need to. Alright, I also forgot to show you the safety switch part. So this pin that's going through here, we need to pull that out a little bit. So let's see. Alright, so if you take your X-Acto knife and you stick it in there to where that slot is, and you give it a little turn and pull at the same time, you can get that pin out a little bit. Or you can just put this in when you're supposed to. Alright, so we're going to take this safety switch and put it in there to where the pin will go through it, through that hole. Okay, so I finished gluing everything together and I painted it up. I also did a little bit of dry brushing technique on it, so it looks like a war-torn prop. And alright, so it operates. I had to put it, after I painted it, it became a little bit stiff, so I put a little bit of vegetable oil on the slider here, and it slides fine. So now the gun operates. Okay, so, oh, and the stand, I made that recess, so what I did was I just kind of filled it with model paint. So that gives it a nice display stand. So there's only one thing left to do. Gotta replace the prototype on the wall. Alright, so there it goes. I'm gonna give that to one of my grandsons. There you go. My wall of Star Wars. Well, I hope you've enjoyed building the DL-44 Han Solo from Blaster Master.